The summer air in downtown Atlanta is thick with heat and sound. Traffic hums like a restless animal, and the smell of roasted peanuts drifts from a vendor on the corner. On Peachtree Street, a crowd is gathered, not for a protest, not for a parade, but for the soulful notes of a guitar cutting through the urban noise. Miles Donovan sits on a worn stool outside a closed pawn shop, his guitar resting comfortably in his lap. His fingers glide over the strings with a kind of effortless precision that comes from decades of practice. Every chord tells a story, every note holds a piece of the man himself. He's dressed simply, faded jeans, a dark t-shirt, and an old leather jacket that seems almost too heavy for the warm evening. The people who pass by can't help but stop. There's something in his music, something that makes strangers slow down, listen, and even smile. A little boy tugs at his mother's sleeve, pointing at the man playing, his eyes wide with wonder. Tourists snap pictures, a few toss crumpled bills into the open guitar case. But not everyone sees beauty in the moment. The low rumble of a police cruiser cuts through the music like an unwelcome bass note. Officer Raymond Carter steps out, adjusting his sunglasses even though the sun is nearly gone. His uniform is crisp, his expression sharper still. He's known in this part of the city, not for keeping the peace, but for making it uneasy. He scans the crowd with thinly veiled disdain before locking eyes on Miles. "All right," he calls out, his voice carrying authority like a club. "Time to wrap it up. You can't just set up shop here." Miles doesn't look up right away. He finishes the melody, letting the final note linger in the air before speaking. "Just playing music, officer, not breaking any laws." "You're blocking the sidewalk," Carter snaps, stepping closer. "City ordinance says no loitering without a permit. You got one?" Miles shakes his head slowly. "Didn't know I needed a permit to share music." "Don't get smart with me," Carter growls. He glances at the small crowd. "And the rest of you? Move along." Some people disperse reluctantly, but others pull out their phones. The red recording dots glint in the fading light. Carter notices and his jaw tightens. He turns back to Miles. "Stand up, hands where I can see 'em." Miles rises slowly, his guitar still in hand. He's calm, too calm, and it only seems to irritate Carter more. The officer steps into his space, one hand on his cuffs. "You're under arrest for obstruction and unlawful street performance." "Obstruction?" Miles repeats, his voice even. "That's what we're calling it?" "Don't test me," Carter warns, pulling the cuffs free. The tension thickens. The crowd murmurs. One woman says, "He's just playing music, man," but Carter ignores her. Miles exhales, a slow, deliberate breath. Then, Istahim, with his free hand, he reaches into the inside pocket of his jacket. Carter's reflexes kick in. His other hand moves toward his holstered weapon. "Hey, don't—" Miles freezes him mid-step with a single calm statement. "Easy, I'm just showing you something." From his pocket, he pulls a small black leather case and flips it open. The gold and blue emblem inside catches the streetlights. Federal Bureau of Investigation. A ripple runs through the crowd. Gasps, whispers, and the sound of more phones clicking record. Carter blinks, his confidence faltering. What is this?" Miles tucks the badge away just as quickly. "It's me doing my job, which right now you're interfering with." The officer's mouth opens, then closes. His eyes dart to the cameras, the people watching, the quiet authority in Miles's gaze. "Job? What job?" Miles doesn't answer. He crouches, packs up his guitar with deliberate care, and slings it over his shoulder. Across the street, in the shadow of a bus stop, a man in a gray hoodie watches the exchange. He doesn't flinch, doesn't turn away, just studies Miles until their eyes meet. Then, without a word, he vanishes into the crowd. Miles notices, his mind sharpening, but says nothing to Carter. He simply steps past the stunned officer, the crowd parting for him like water. Within minutes, the videos hit social media, captions exploding. "Street musician stuns cop with FBI badge." The views climb, comments pour in. And somewhere in the flood of online chatter, a question begins to spread. Why is an FBI agent posing as a street musician in Atlanta? Miles knows the answer, but tonight, the streets will keep their secrets a little longer. Because the music isn't just a cover, it's a warning. And the real performance hasn't even begun. Night falls quickly in downtown Atlanta, wrapping the city in a patchwork of shadows and neon. The hum of traffic has softened to a low drone, replaced by the occasional wail of a distant siren and the faint thud of bass from a nightclub a few blocks over. The air is warm but carries a hint of coolness, a reminder that autumn is not far away. Miles Donovan walks with purpose, his guitar case slung over his shoulder, the FBI badge still hidden deep in his jacket. His eyes scan the streets, alert for movement, for anyone paying too much attention. He has learned over years in the field that danger rarely announces itself. It lingers quietly until it strikes. The crowd from earlier has dispersed, leaving the sidewalks mostly empty, but Miles can feel it. Someone is following him. He turns a corner into a narrow alley, lit only by a single flickering bulb over a side door. The moment he steps inside, the city's noise dulls, replaced by the echo of his own footsteps. That's when he hears it, the faint scrape of shoes on pavement coming from behind. He stops, adjusts his grip on the guitar case, and speaks without turning around. "You've been trailing me for 3 blocks. You want to step into the light, or should I assume you're looking for trouble?" From the shadows, a man emerges, the same figure from the bus stop. He's tall, lean, dressed in a gray hoodie pulled low over his forehead. His hands are empty, but his posture carries tension, like a coiled spring. "Didn't mean to spook you," the man says, his voice low and even. "Just curious about your performance back there." Miles tilts his head slightly. "You mean the music? Or the badge?" A thin smile crosses the man's face. "Both." There's a pause, the kind that stretches just long enough to make it uncomfortable. Miles studies him, the way his eyes never stay still, the faint scar along his jawline. Not a random civilian, not a tourist. "You FBI too?" Miles asks. The man shakes his head slowly. "Let's just say I'm in the same business. Different department." Miles doesn't like vague answers, but now isn't the time to press. "If that's true, you know following another agent without clearance is a bad idea." The man's smile fades. "Clearance works both ways, Donovan." The use of his name sends a ripple of cold through Miles's spine. This man knows who he is, which means this isn't chance, it's intentional. Before Miles can respond, a sudden noise shatters the quiet, a crash from the far end of the alley, followed by the sound of hurried footsteps. Both men turn toward it instinctively, but the runner is already gone, melting into the maze of backstreets. Miles swears under his breath. "That's my guy," he says, moving to follow. But the man in the hoodie steps into his path. "Not tonight. You've already made enough noise for one day." Miles locks eyes with him, weighing his options. This operation has been months in the making, and the suspect he just saw could blow it wide open. But charging after him now would risk exposing everything. Finally, Miles exhales and steps back. "You've got 10 seconds to tell me who you are and why you're here." The man hesitates, then pulls a small card from his pocket. It's not a badge, but an ID, Department of Homeland Security. "Name's Ryan Mercer. I've been tracking the same crew you're after. But unlike you, I don't announce myself to half the city." Miles takes the card, studies it, then hands it back. "If you know who I'm after, you know they don't stick around long. That runner's going to disappear before sunrise." "Maybe," Mercer says. "Or maybe he'll come find you. You just painted a target on your back, Donovan." There's something unsettling in the way Mercer says it. Not as a warning, but as a certainty. Miles decides to end the conversation. "Then I'll be ready." He steps around Mercer and heads back toward the main street. The city noise swells again, swallowing the tension of the alley, but the words linger in his mind. "You just painted a target on your back." By the time Miles reaches his safe house, a cramped apartment above a laundromat, his phone is buzzing. He checks the screen. An encrypted message. "No sender ID. We saw the badge. That was a mistake. No signature. No further explanation." Miles sets his guitar case down, locks the door behind him, and stares at the message until the screen goes dark. He knows exactly who sent it, and what it means. The game has changed. The cover is thinner than ever, and somewhere out there, the people he's hunting now know exactly who's hunting them. Morning light creeps into the narrow apartment through blinds that haven't been opened in weeks. Miles Donovan sits at the small kitchen table, nursing a cup of black coffee that's gone cold. The message from last night still echoes in his mind. "We saw the badge. That was a mistake." He replays the events in his head. The performance, the crowd, Officer Carter's aggression, the reveal of the badge, the man in the hoodie, and the runner in the alley. Each piece fits into the larger puzzle he's been building, but the picture is still incomplete. His phone buzzes again. This time it's a call from his FBI handler, Special Agent Dana Whitfield. Miles answers, his tone guarded. You just made my morning a lot harder, Dana says without greeting. Do you have any idea how fast that video is spreading? I can guess, Miles replies. You were supposed to stay in deep cover. Now every two-bit hustler in the city knows there's a federal agent sniffing around. And Carter? She pauses, sighing. Carter's already filed a complaint about you. Let him, Miles says, leaning back in his chair. He was interfering with an ongoing federal investigation. I didn't escalate, he did. That's not the point. The Bureau wants you to pull back, lay low for a few days until the heat dies down. Miles takes a slow sip of his coffee, ignoring the bitterness. Not an option. The guy I saw last night was Jamal Price. Dana's tone shifts immediately. You're sure? I've been tracking him for 6 months. Same build, same gait. I'd stake my badge on it. There's a long pause. All right, she says finally, but you watch your back. Price isn't just a dealer anymore. He's tied to something bigger. And if he knows who you are… He does, Miles interrupts. That's the problem. After the call, Miles moves to the window, parting the blinds just enough to see the street below. There's a black SUV parked across from the laundromat. Tinted windows. Engine off. He knows better than to assume it's a coincidence. Grabbing his guitar case, Miles slips out the back entrance and heads toward the subway. The case, heavy with more than just a guitar, bumps against his leg as he walks. Inside, along with the instrument, is a compact surveillance kit. A parabolic microphone, a discrete camera, and a small transmitter. The subway ride takes him to Edgewood Avenue, a stretch of the city where street art covers every wall and the air smells of coffee, beer, and fried food. It's the kind of place where no one questions a man playing guitar on a corner, perfect for what he needs to do. He sets up outside a small cafe, tuning his guitar as people pass by. The music isn't the goal today. It's the vantage point. From here, he has a clear line of sight to the entrance of a warehouse 2 blocks away, one of Jamal Price's known meeting spots. As he plays, the disguised camera inside the guitar case streams live footage to a secure FBI channel. To the crowd, he's just another busker. To the Bureau, he's an undercover asset in the field. An hour passes before anything happens. Then, a matte gray sedan pulls up to the warehouse. Price steps out, dressed in a tailored suit that contrasts sharply with the rough surroundings. He's not alone. 2 men in dark coats flank him, scanning the street before ushering him inside. Miles keeps playing, eyes flicking between his strings and the warehouse. A few minutes later, another car arrives, this one with New York plates. 2 more men get out, one carrying a silver briefcase. He plays louder, masking the click of the transmitter as he zooms the camera lens. The image sharpens, enough to catch Price shaking hands with the man holding the case before they disappear into the building. Then, movement on the edge of his vision. Across the street, leaning casually against a lamppost, is Ryan Mercer. He's watching Miles, not the warehouse. Miles doesn't break his rhythm, but his mind races. Mercer's presence here means one of 2 things. Either DHS is officially involved, or Mercer is running his own game. Neither option sits well. The cafe owner, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes, comes out to hand Miles a bottle of water. On the house, she says, smiling. But as she leans closer, her voice drops. 2 men have been asking about you. Said they're friends. Didn't I look friendly? Miles thanks her, keeping his expression neutral. Appreciate the heads up. She nods and goes back inside. Within minutes, the 2 men appear. One bald, the other with a neck tattoo curling up toward his ear. They walk with the easy confidence of people who know exactly how dangerous they are. They stop a few feet from Miles. The bald one smiles without warmth. Nice music. Shame if something happened to those hands. Miles stops playing, letting the last chord ring out. You have a message for me, or is this just small talk? The tattooed man leans in. Price says you should stop looking for him, or he'll start looking for you. Miles meets his gaze without flinching. Tell Price I'm not hard to find. The men exchange a glance, then walk away, disappearing into the crowd. Miles packs up quickly. This isn't just a game of cat and mouse anymore. It's a street war waiting to ignite. And in the middle of it all, his cover is paper thin. He sends a quick coded message to Dana. Price confirmed. Hostiles made contact. Possible surveillance compromised. As he heads toward the subway, he catches one last glimpse of the warehouse. The gray sedan is gone. So is the car with New York plates. And so is Ryan Mercer. The subway rattles beneath the city, its metallic screech echoing through the tunnels as Miles Donovan rides in the last car. The crowd is sparse, just a handful of commuters staring at their phones, a man asleep against the window, and a teenage boy tapping a rhythm on his knees. The hum of the train feels almost soothing after the tension on Edgewood Avenue, but Miles knows better than to relax. He keeps his guitar case between his legs, one hand resting casually on the handle. Every few seconds, he glances at the reflection in the train's window, scanning for anyone taking too much interest in him. 3 stops later, 2 men get on. One in a baseball cap pulled low, the other in a black hoodie. They move to opposite ends of the car without speaking. It's subtle, but Miles recognizes the tactic. They're boxing him in. When the train pulls into the next station, Miles doesn't wait. He slips out just as the doors start to close, forcing the men to scramble after him. The platform is crowded, giving him the cover he needs. He weaves through the throng, heading for the stairs, but he doesn't make it far before a voice cuts through the noise. "Donovan!" It's Ryan Mercer. He's leaning against the tiled wall near the exit, arms crossed. His expression is calm, but his eyes are sharp. "You've got a talent for being in the wrong place at the wrong time," Mercer says. Miles keeps walking until they're shoulder to shoulder. "And you've got a talent for showing up uninvited. You going to tell me why you're following me?" "I'm not following you," Mercer replies. "I'm keeping you alive. Those 2 behind you, Price's people. You walk out of here without me, you don't make it to the next block." Miles glances back. The men from the train are pushing through the crowd, closing the distance. He doesn't have time to argue. "Fine," Miles says. "Lead the way." Mercer guides him out a side exit through a maintenance door that opens into a dimly lit service tunnel. The air smells faintly of oil and damp concrete. They walk in silence for a minute before Mercer finally speaks. "You're too visible. That stunt with the badge put a target on your back so big I can see it from Washington." Miles keeps his tone flat. "You think I don't know that? Price was right there. I couldn't risk him slipping away again." "There's a difference between risk and suicide," Mercer shoots back. "You're working an infiltration op. You blow your cover, you blow the case." They emerge into an alley behind a shuttered convenience store. The morning light is brighter here, but the street is quiet. Miles leans against the wall, studying Mercer. "You still haven't told me what your angle is," Miles says. "If DHS is on this, I need to know why." Mercer looks him dead in the eye. "Because Price isn't just running guns and drugs anymore. He's moving tech, sensitive tech. The kind you don't buy on the open market." That gets Miles's attention. "Military grade?" Mercer nods. "And not just for domestic buyers. He's connected to an overseas network. We've been tracking pieces of hardware going missing from secure facilities for months. Price is the middleman." Miles exhales slowly. "That explains the sudden influx of muscle." "Exactly," Mercer says. "And if he suspects you're FBI, he'll do more than send a couple of goons to scare you. He'll disappear, and we'll lose him." Before Miles can respond, his phone vibrates. A secure message from Dana. "Meet me. Urgent. Safe House Beta." Miles pockets the phone. "Looks like we're done here." Mercer steps in front of him. "We're not done. Whether you like it or not, we're working the same case. You want to stay alive, you stay in contact with me." Miles doesn't answer. He walks away, turning the corner without looking back. The Safe House Beta is a nondescript apartment above a discount furniture store. Inside, the blinds are drawn, and the only light comes from a desk lamp in the corner where Dana Whitfield sits with her laptop. She looks up as Miles enters. "You've got a problem," she says without preamble. "I've got several," Miles replies. "Which one are we talking about?" She swivels the laptop toward him. On the screen is grainy security footage from the warehouse. Miles playing guitar on the corner, the 2 vehicles arriving, and Price greeting his visitors. Then, another angle from inside the building shows something far more troubling. Price opening the silver briefcase to reveal a compact, high-tech device. "What is that?" Miles asks. "Classified," Dana says. "But let's just say if it leaves the country, a lot of people are going to have very bad days." Miles studies the footage. "So Price is the hub. And you're the only one close enough to get inside," Dana says. "But after yesterday, he's going to be cautious. You'll need a new way in." Miles paces the room. "He's got a thing for music. He saw me play once before this op started, told someone I played like I'd been through hell. Maybe I use that." Dana narrows her eyes. "You want to get hired as his personal entertainment?" "More than that," Miles says. "I get into his private events, I get into his inner circle. From there, I find out where that tech is going and shut it down." Dana hesitates, then nods. "It's risky, but it might be our only shot." That night, Miles is back on the street, guitar in hand, this time in a neighborhood where Price's people like to spend their money. He plays with a raw, bluesy edge, letting the music bleed emotion into the air. It doesn't take long. A black SUV pulls up. The bald man from earlier steps out, approaches Miles, and listens for a minute before speaking. "Price heard you're playing again," he says. "He wants you at his party tomorrow night." Miles keeps his face neutral. "Tell him I'll be there." As the SUV drives away, Miles allows himself the faintest smile. He's inside again, but this time the stakes are higher than ever, and one wrong note could be his last. The following evening, Miles Donovan stands in front of an ornate, wrought-iron gate flanked by two stone lions. Beyond it, Price's estate glows in the warm amber light spilling from dozens of windows. Expensive cars line the circular driveway, sleek black sedans, imported sports cars, and one vintage convertible that looks like it belongs in a museum. The faint thump of bass seeps through the thick air, mingling with the scent of expensive cigars and grilled meat. Two guards approach. They're dressed in tailored suits, but the way they carry themselves says ex-military. One of them, a tall man with a shaved head, glances at Miles's guitar case. "Name?" "Miles," he says simply. The man consults a tablet, finds the name, and nods. "Mr. Price is expecting you. Follow the path to the rear terrace." Miles passes through the gate, his steps slow and deliberate. He notes the positions of the security cameras, the rhythm of the patrols along the perimeter, and the subtle bulge of concealed holsters under tailored jackets. Price doesn't throw casual parties. Every detail here screams controlled environment. The rear terrace is a sprawling space overlooking the city skyline. White linen tables are scattered across polished stone, and guests mingle in clusters, men in sharp suits, women in evening gowns, their conversations a mix of laughter and whispered deals. At the center of it all stands Leonard Price. Tall, broad-shouldered, with silver hair slicked back and a drink in hand, he exudes the effortless charisma of someone who knows exactly how much power he wields. "Miles Donovan," Price calls out, his voice smooth but carrying weight. "The man who plays like the devil's on his heels." Miles offers a small smile. "Glad you liked it." Price gestures toward a small stage set up near the edge of the terrace. "Give us something worth remembering." As Miles sets up, he feels dozens of eyes on him. He strums a few warm-up chords, letting the rich sound fill the air, then slips into a soulful blues progression. Conversations quiet. Heads turn. The music draws them in, lowering their guard. Miles watches Price out of the corner of his eye. The man is enjoying himself, but he's also watching Miles with the faintest trace of suspicion. Halfway through his second song, Miles spots movement near the far edge of the terrace, a small group stepping away from the crowd and disappearing into the house. One of them is the bald man from the SUV. The other is a stocky figure Miles recognizes from Dana's footage, Price's logistics chief. Miles shifts seamlessly into a slower tune, letting it become background music while he takes mental snapshots. The group's exit route, the timing, the fact that no one else seems to notice, it all matters. When the set ends, polite applause ripples through the crowd. Price claps once, loud and deliberate. "You'll play again later," he says. "But for now, enjoy yourself. My home is your home." It's an invitation, but also a test. Miles wanders through the house, moving with the casual confidence of someone who belongs. The interior is a study in excess. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and walls lined with art worth more than most people's homes. But what interests Miles isn't on display. It's behind closed doors. Near the east wing, he finds a hallway guarded by another suited man. The guard's posture is relaxed, but his eyes track every movement. Miles approaches, guitar case slung over his shoulder. "Mr. Price wanted me to tune up in a quieter space," he says, keeping his tone friendly but firm. The guard hesitates, then shakes his head. "Private area." "Right," Miles says with an easy smile. "No problem." He walks away, but the hallway is now firmly etched in his memory. Back on the terrace, Price raises a glass. "To prosperity," he says, and the crowd echoes the toast. The moment feels choreographed, a distraction to cover something happening elsewhere. Miles plays another set, this one upbeat and lively, buying himself time. Between songs, he notices Dana's signal in the distance. Brief, subtle, just enough to confirm she's in position. She's working the perimeter, gathering what she can. As the night wears on, the crowd thins. The high-profile guests leave first, chauffeured away in sleek cars. By midnight, only a core group remains. Price's inner circle. Miles keeps playing, blending into the background until Price himself approaches. "You've got skill, Donovan," Price says, "but skill without loyalty is wasted. Tell me, are you loyal?" Miles meets his gaze evenly. "To the music, always." Price chuckles, but there's calculation in his eyes. "We'll see." Before Miles can respond, the logistics chief reappears, whispering something into Price's ear. Price's expression hardens for a fraction of a second, then smooths back into his usual charm. He pats Miles on the shoulder. "We'll talk again soon." As Price walks away, Miles knows the real conversation hasn't happened yet. The night's performance was just the opening act. The encore will be played in shadows, where the stakes are higher and the audience far less forgiving. It is well past midnight when the laughter and music on the terrace begin to fade. Most of the guests have departed, leaving behind only the faint clink of glasses and the smell of cigar smoke clinging to the air. Miles keeps playing a slow, winding tune on the small stage, but his eyes are scanning for an opening. That hallway, the one guarded earlier, still tugs at his mind like a thread waiting to be pulled. Price is somewhere inside that wing, and if the logistics chief's earlier movement meant anything, that's where the real business is conducted. When the remaining guests gather near the bar, Miles takes his chance. He slips his guitar back into its case and walks casually toward the east wing. The guard is still there, but now he's leaning against the wall, distracted by a conversation on his earpiece. Miles approaches with a confident nod, as if he has every right to be there. The guard raises a hand. "Still off limits." Miles leans in slightly. "Price just sent me to play something special for him. Said to meet him in the private lounge." He says it with the calm authority of someone used to giving orders, not taking them. The guard hesitates, long enough for Miles to step past him. He could be stopped, but the hesitation works in his favor. Once he's down the hallway, the guard can't follow without making a scene. The carpet muffles Miles's footsteps as he moves deeper into the wing. The lighting shifts from the warm glow of the main house to a softer, dimmer ambiance. The walls here are lined with dark wood and photographs. Price shaking hands with politicians, standing beside celebrities, and smiling with military officers. Each image tells the same story: influence and reach. At the end of the hall is a velvet-covered door. Miles pauses, listening. Muffled voices drift through. Two men. One of them unmistakably Price. The other voice is lower, rougher, with the cadence of someone used to giving field orders. Miles turns the handle just enough to slip inside. The room beyond is a blend of opulence and secrecy. A round table sits in the center, covered with maps, blueprints, and several unmarked envelopes. A decanter of amber liquid glows under the soft light of a crystal lamp. Price is seated at the head of the table, the logistics chief to his right. Standing over them is the bald man from the SUV, pointing to a section of the blueprint with a pen. "Shipment arrives Thursday," the bald man is saying. "Port Authority has already been paid off. Once it's in the warehouse, distribution happens within 12 hours. No delays." Price nods. "And security?" "Handled. Our friend at the precinct has already shifted patrol routes." Miles keeps to the shadows, his heartbeat steady but elevated. This is it, the evidence he's been working toward for months. He edges closer, letting his phone record quietly from inside his jacket pocket. Price reaches for one of the envelopes and slides it across the table. "Then consider this your bonus. You've earned it." The bald man takes the envelope without opening it. "Pleasure doing business." Before they can continue, a faint creak from the door betrays Miles's presence. All three men turn their heads sharply. "Donovan?" Price's voice is calm, but there's steel underneath. "Enjoying the tour?" Miles forces a smile, stepping into the light. "I heard music in here. Thought I'd join in." The logistics chief's eyes narrow. "You don't belong in this room." Price raises a hand to silence him. "Relax, our guest is simply curious." Miles senses the shift. The easy charm from earlier is gone, replaced by the calculating coldness of a man who's deciding whether to let you walk out alive. "I'll show myself out," Miles says lightly, starting toward the door. "Not yet," Price replies. "You're an interesting man, Donovan. You show up out of nowhere. You play like you've lived 100 lifetimes, and you wander into places you shouldn't be. Makes me wonder, are you really just a musician?" Miles meets his gaze without flinching. "That's all I've ever been." Price leans back, studying him for a long moment. "We'll see." The bald man steps toward Miles, blocking the path to the door. The room seems smaller now, the air heavier. You know, Price says slowly, in my line of work, people who ask too many questions don't last very long. Miles shrugs. Good thing I'm not asking questions. Price smiles thinly. Good thing. After a tense beat, he waves his hand. The bald man steps aside. Go get some rest, Donovan. Tomorrow might be interesting. Miles leaves without another word, but every instinct tells him that Price isn't done with him. Back on the terrace, he finds Dana waiting near the shadows, her expression sharp. What happened? She whispers. They're moving something through the port on Thursday, Miles says quietly, and Price knows I'm not who I say I am. We have to move now. Dana nods. Then let's finish this before he finishes you. The night air outside the estate is cool, carrying the faint scent of the ocean. Miles and Dana move quickly, keeping to the tree-lined path that leads away from Price's property. Neither of them speaks until they reach Dana's car parked a few blocks away. Its windows darken to blend with the quiet street. Once inside, Dana starts the engine but keeps the headlights off. Tell me everything, she says. Miles recounts the scene in the private lounge. The maps, the blueprints, the Thursday shipment at the port, and the unmistakable signs of a major operation about to go live. They've paid off the Port Authority, he adds. Once it hits the warehouse, it's gone within 12 hours. Dana exhales sharply. That's a narrow window. If we miss it, we lose the trail completely. Miles nods. And Price already suspects me. He let me walk out tonight, but that was his way of saying he's watching. They drive in silence for a while, the city lights blurring past the tinted glass. Finally, Dana pulls into a dimly lit garage beneath an old brick building. Inside, a hidden operations hub hums with quiet activity. Monitors flicker with live camera feeds, maps are pinned with colored markers, and a wall of photos connects faces with strings of red thread. Agent Harris, a tall man with a weathered face, looks up from a workstation as they enter. You got something? Miles places his guitar case on the table and pops it open. Instead of just the instrument, there's a small recorder tucked inside, still warm from use. Full audio from Price's meeting, he says. Shipment details, routes, everything. Harris plugs it in, letting the voices from earlier play through the speakers. Price's smooth tone, the bald man's logistics breakdown, it's all there. This is solid, Harris says, but it's not enough for an arrest. We need to catch them in the act. Dana crosses her arms. We have until Thursday. That gives us less than 72 hours to plan and position. Miles scans the wall of intel, his eyes landing on a satellite image of the port. They'll use Dock 14. It's isolated, minimal security after hours, and it's got direct road access for quick offloading. Harris frowns. How do you know? I've seen that blueprint before, Miles replies. Different job, same playbook. The team spends the next 2 hours mapping out every move. Surveillance teams will monitor the port starting Wednesday night. A tactical unit will be staged nearby in unmarked vans. Miles will stay in cover until the last possible moment, close enough to confirm Price's presence, but far enough to avoid blowing his identity too soon. By 3 a.m., the plan is set. Dana looks at Miles. You've got the most dangerous role. You'll be inside the operation when we close in. If something feels off, you pull out immediately. Miles gives a small, humorless smile. When does it ever feel on? Over the next 2 days, Miles continues his cover as the street musician Price believes he is, playing at the same corner spots, showing up at familiar haunts, keeping up the illusion. But every note he plays is under the weight of the ticking clock. On Wednesday evening, he gets a text from an unknown number. Price wants to see you. Midnight. He shows the message to Dana. Could be a loyalty test. Could be a trap, she replies. Go armed. That night, Miles arrives at a dimly lit warehouse on the edge of the industrial district. Inside, Price is leaning against a stack of crates, a cigar smoldering between his fingers. The bald man is there too, along with several others who exude the same quiet menace. Donovan, Price greets, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Got a job for you. Miles keeps his tone casual. What kind of job? Price gestures to a stack of black duffel bags. You'll be part of the loading crew tomorrow night. Simple work. Move the cargo from the dock to the trucks. No questions asked. Miles tilts his head. And if I do ask questions? Price's smile fades. Then you're asking for trouble. Miles nods slowly. No questions. As they talk, he takes in every detail. The number of men, the layout of the warehouse, the position of the security cameras. He stores it all away, knowing it will be crucial when the operation goes down. When Price dismisses him, Miles walks out into the cold night, pulling his phone from his pocket as soon as he's clear. Doc 14 confirmed, he tells Dana. Midnight tomorrow, I'll be on the crew. Copy that, she says. We'll be ready. Back at his small apartment, Miles sets his guitar down and sits in the dark for a long moment. Every instinct tells him the next 24 hours will decide everything. Whether Price's empire crumbles or whether Miles's cover is blown beyond repair. And somewhere deep down, he knows Price is thinking the same thing. The clock strikes 11:45 p.m., and Doc 14 is cloaked in the kind of darkness that hides both secrets and danger. The only illumination comes from a few scattered floodlights, their pale glow barely cutting through the mist rolling in from the bay. The smell of salt and diesel hangs heavy in the air, mingling with the faint sound of water lapping against the hulls of cargo ships. Miles stands at the edge of the dock, wearing worn work gloves and a heavy jacket to blend with the rest of the loading crew. Around him, men in similar gear move with practiced efficiency, their faces shadowed by caps pulled low. He keeps his head down, his eyes tracking every movement while maintaining the appearance of a man here only for the job he's been told to do. In the distance, the low rumble of a truck engine echoes. Two large box trucks pull up beside the dock, their rear doors swinging open to reveal empty cargo space. This is where the shipment will vanish, hidden in a plain sight, driven away before anyone can react. Price arrives minutes later, stepping out of a sleek black SUV. The bald man from the warehouse walks beside him, scanning the crew with cold, assessing eyes. Price's presence is magnetic, pulling the attention of everyone without him needing to say a word. "All right, gentlemen," Price begins, his voice carrying easily over the dockside noise. "Let's make this quick and clean. No mistakes." A cargo ship looms at the far end of the dock, its massive hull silent except for the groan of ropes against metal cleats. A ramp extends from the ship's side, and within moments, the first crate appears, large, unmarked, and heavy. Two men wrestle it onto a dolly and wheel it toward the trucks. Miles positions himself near the middle of the line, just close enough to see what's inside without drawing suspicion. As the second crate is opened briefly for inspection, he catches a glimpse of tightly wrapped bundles, too uniform for random goods. Dana's earlier suspicions about weapons or high-value contraband are all but confirmed. From his earpiece, a faint crackle comes to life. Dana's voice is low and steady. "We have eyes on you. Tactical teams are in position. Confirm when Price is close enough for us to move." Miles keeps his reply brief. "Stand by." Price walks the length of the dock, stopping every so often to exchange a word with his men. When he reaches the point nearest to Miles, he pauses, watching him lift a crate into the truck. "You work fast," Price says, his tone almost casual. Miles nods. "I like to finish what I start." Price studies him for a moment longer, then moves on. That's the signal. Miles subtly touches the side of his cap, activating the agreed-upon code for Dana. Within seconds, the distant wail of sirens begins to rise, cutting through the night air. The reaction is immediate. Shouts from the crew, the scrape of crates being shoved back onto the ship, and the slam of truck doors. Price's head snaps toward the sound, his expression turning from annoyance to cold calculation. "Shut it down!" he orders. "Move out! Now!" Before the trucks can pull away, black-clad tactical agents surge from the shadows, weapons raised. "Federal agents! Hands where we can see them!" Chaos erupts. Some of Price's men drop their crates and freeze. Others make a break for it, darting toward the far end of the dock. Miles stays put, raising his hands to keep his cover intact until the moment is right. Price backs toward his SUV, the bald man covering him like a shield. Two agents move to cut them off, but Price ducks behind a stack of crates, disappearing from sight. Dana's voice cuts through Miles's earpiece. "He's trying to slip out the south side. Can you intercept?" Miles doesn't hesitate. On it. He breaks from the group, weaving through the chaos toward the far end of the dock. Price emerges from between two shipping containers, glancing over his shoulder. That's when he sees Miles, and the faint glint of something in his hand. "Donovan," Price says, his voice low and edged. "You're not one of us, are you?" Miles meets his gaze and reaches into his jacket, pulling out a small leather wallet. The golden blue of the FBI badge catches the light. Not even close. For the first time, Price's composure falters. His eyes flick to the agents closing in from both sides. The bald man makes a move toward Miles, but a warning shout from Dana stops him cold. "This is over, Price," Miles says. Dock 14, the Port Authority bribes, the shipments, it's all on record. Price straightens, his defiance returning. You think taking me down ends this? You have no idea how deep it goes. Then I'll keep digging, Miles replies. Agents swarm in, securing Price and his lieutenant in handcuffs. The rest of the crew is rounded up, the crates seized as evidence. The night air feels heavier now, thick with the smell of diesel and the adrenaline of an operation finally brought to its breaking point. Dana appears at Miles's side, her eyes scanning the scene. Nice timing. Miles smirks faintly. Always liked a good finale. They watch as Price is led to an armored vehicle, his expression unreadable. Somewhere in the distance, the mist begins to lift, revealing the faint glow of the city skyline. The operation at Dock 14 is over, but Miles knows this isn't the last time he'll be chasing shadows in the dark. The hum of the fluorescent light fills the small gray-walled room. A single table sits in the center, flanked by two metal chairs. On one side, Price leans back, arms crossed, a faint smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. His suit jacket is gone, his shirt sleeves rolled up, but he still carries himself with the kind of arrogance that doesn't fade easily. On the other side, Miles walks in with a folder under his arm. Dana follows, setting a voice recorder on the table. The red light blinks steadily as the device clicks on. Mr. Price, Miles begins, his voice calm but edged with steel. We can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. Price chuckles. That's what they all say. But the thing is, Agent Donovan, I know how this works. You've got nothing that sticks to me personally, circumstantial at best. Miles opens the folder, laying out photographs, crates being loaded, the ledger from the warehouse, screenshots of wire transfers. Each image lands with a soft slap against the metal table. Price glances at them but doesn't break his composure. Dana steps forward. We have testimony from your crew, Price. They're talking about the shipments, about the payoffs to port officials, about you. He tilts his head, feigning boredom. Crew loyalty doesn't last long when the feds wave a deal in their faces, but deals can be broken. Memories can be corrected. Miles leans in slightly. This isn't about loyalty anymore. This is about you trying to smuggle high-grade weapons through the port, using civilian freight as cover. That's a federal offense with a sentence that makes life in prison look generous. Price's smirk falters for the briefest moment before returning. You think you've got it all figured out, don't you? You're chasing shadows. I'm just a businessman. Dana places another photograph on the table, this one of Price shaking hands with a foreign dignitary, a man flagged in multiple intelligence reports. Businessman, that's funny, because this business partner of yours is on our watch list for funding extremist cells. Price's jaw tightens, but he quickly masks it with a shrug. Guilt by association doesn't hold up in court. Miles sits down across from him, folding his hands. You're right. But wire transfers, recorded calls, and eyewitness accounts? Those do. The silence stretches. Outside the room, through the one-way glass, two other agents watch closely. One of them scribbles notes while the other monitors a live feed from the docks where agents continue cataloging the seized crates. Price finally leans forward, his voice dropping. You have no idea who you're messing with. This operation, it's bigger than me. Bigger than you. Take me out and someone worse will fill the gap. That's not my problem, Miles says evenly. My job is to make sure you answer for what you've done. Price studies him for a long moment, then laughs softly. You know what, Agent Donovan? You remind me of someone I used to know. Idealistic. Thought he could clean up the streets. He didn't last long. Dana crosses her arms. We're not here for stories, we're here for the truth. Names, locations, contacts. You start talking and maybe you get a deal that doesn't leave you rotting in a cell for the rest of your life. Price's eyes flick to the folder, then back to Miles. And what's in it for me if I keep quiet? Miles closes the folder. Then you get to watch as we dismantle everything you built, piece by piece, and you'll do it from behind bars. For the first time, there's a crack in Price's confidence. He shifts in his seat, the weight of the situation pressing in. The room feels smaller now, the air thicker. He glances at the door as if calculating his odds of walking out a free man. Dana breaks the silence. Tick-tock, Price. Every minute you stall, your options get worse. He leans back, staring at the ceiling. I want protection, witness relocation, and immunity for certain associates. Miles shakes his head. You're not in a position to negotiate for anyone but yourself. Price smirks again, but it's weaker this time. Then I'll give you one name, one, and you'll see just how deep this goes. Dana exchanges a quick look with Miles. He nods. We're listening. Price leans forward, lowering his voice to a near whisper. There's a man, goes by the name Calder. Runs shipments through 3 other ports. He's untouchable. At least that's what everyone thinks. Miles's mind races. Calder is a ghost in the intelligence community, a name that pops up in whispers and half-finished reports, always tied to major smuggling rings. If Price is telling the truth, this could be the thread that unravels an entire network. Dana scribbles the name down. Where do we find him? Price sits back, his smirk returning, though not as sure as before. That's the thing. He finds you. The tension in the room thickens. Miles knows this isn't over, not by a long shot. Price may be in custody, but the game has just shifted to a much larger playing field. Outside the room, an agent steps in, whispering something to Dana. Her expression hardens. Miles, we need to talk. Now. Miles rises, giving Price one last look. Enjoy the cell. We'll be in touch. As they step into the hallway, Dana's voice drops. We just got word. 2 of the seized crates are missing. Someone pulled them before we got there. Miles's jaw tightens. Then Calder already knows we're coming. The rain hasn't stopped since dawn. It drums steadily against the windows of the field office, casting blurred reflections of the city lights outside. Miles stands by the glass, arms crossed, replaying Dana's words in his mind. 2 crates missing. Not misplaced, not overlooked. Taken. That means someone inside the Port Authority or the task force had advance warning. Dana enters, carrying a steaming cup of coffee. They pulled security footage from the port. You'll want to see this. She sets a tablet on the table. The screen shows grainy footage of 2 men in reflective vests moving crates onto an unmarked van. Their faces are obscured by caps and masks, their movements quick and precise. Professional, Miles mutters. Dana nods. And here's the kicker. This happened 30 minutes before we even rolled in for the raid. That narrows the leak to a handful of people. Miles knows Price couldn't have arranged it from the interrogation room, which means Calder has eyes and ears everywhere. The thought settles in his gut like a stone. Miles leaves the room and heads to the holding cells. Price sits on the bench, looking far too relaxed for someone facing decades in federal prison. You hear about your missing crates? He says with a smug grin. Miles ignores the bait. Where's Calder? Price shrugs. Like I told you, he finds you. That's not going to cut it, Miles says, stepping closer. 2 crates gone. That's on you. You brought his operation into my city, and now I'm cleaning up your mess. Price leans forward, lowering his voice. If you're smart, you'll stop trying to clean it up. Calder doesn't lose. People who think otherwise disappear. Miles leaves before his temper gets the better of him. Back in the operations room, Dana has pulled up a dossier. This is everything we've got on Calder. Which isn't much. The file is thin. Just a few photographs, each one blurry or shot from a distance. A figure in a tailored coat stepping into a black sedan. Another of a man at a private airstrip, his face hidden behind sunglasses. Multiple aliases, multiple passports, and no clear country of origin. Interpol flagged him in connection with arms deals in Eastern Europe, Dana says. DEA suspects he's moved product through Central America, but no one's ever gotten close enough to confirm. Miles studies the photos. Until now. That night, the team meets in a secure conference room. Agents from other divisions join via video feed, their faces grainy in the dim light. Miles lays out the plan. Track the stolen crates, follow the chain back to Calder, and cut off his network before he can vanish again. An agent from the cyber unit speaks up. We ran plate recognition on the van from the port footage. Last sighting was on a service road heading toward the old industrial district. Dana pulls up a map. The industrial district is a maze of abandoned warehouses and loading docks, perfect for offloading stolen cargo without drawing attention. The team gears up. Black SUVs roll quietly through the rain-slick streets, headlights cutting through the mist. Miles rides shotgun in the lead vehicle, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. When they reach the district, the air smells of rust and wet concrete. They move in formation, flashlights sweeping over corrugated metal walls tagged with faded graffiti. A faint hum of machinery echoes from somewhere deeper inside. Over here, one of the agents calls softly. They round the corner to find fresh tire tracks in the mud, leading to a warehouse with a single light burning inside. Miles signals for silence. They approach the side door, weapons ready. Dana takes point, easing it open just enough to peer inside. Two men are unloading crates identical to the ones from the port. Miles gestures and the team floods in. Federal agents, hands where I can see them. The men freeze, then drop their crowbars. One makes a break for the back door but is tackled before he gets 3 steps. The other stares at Miles with a look that's part fear, part defiance. Where's Calder? Miles demands. The man shakes his head. You're too late. He's gone. They secure the scene, cataloging the crates. Only one from the port is here. The other is still missing. Miles feels the frustration building. Calder is always one step ahead, moving pieces on a board no one else can fully see. As the team wraps up, Dana hands Miles a phone recovered from one of the men. It's locked, but maybe Cyber can crack it. Back at the field office, the tech team works fast. Within an hour, they've pulled the phone's call history and recent texts. One message stands out, sent just hours ago. Delivery confirmed. Next meet at Pier 14, midnight. Miles checks his watch. It's 10:45. They have barely over an hour to set up an intercept. The SUVs tear through the city again, rain still falling in sheets. Pier 14 is quiet when they arrive, the only light coming from a row of docked ships. They take positions in the shadows, watching. At 11:58, a black SUV pulls up. A tall figure steps out, coat collar turned up against the rain. Even in the dim light, Miles knows this is him, Calder. He moves with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing the ground you walk on belongs to you. Another vehicle pulls in behind him. Men step out carrying a long, tarp-covered object, too big for a standard shipment, too carefully handled to be anything but dangerous. Miles whispers into his comms, "On my mark." They move in fast, but Calder doesn't run. Instead, he turns slowly, a faint smile on his lips, as if he's been expecting them all along. Rainwater pools on the slick wooden planks of Pier 14, each droplet sending out ripples that catch the glow of the dock lights. Miles keeps his breathing steady, his weapon trained on Calder, the man who's been a shadow in every lead, every false trail. Calder's men freeze mid-step, their hands still gripping the tarp-covered object. "Federal agents!" Miles calls out, voice cutting through the storm. "Drop whatever that is and step away, now!" Calder doesn't flinch. Instead, he studies Miles with the cool detachment of someone reading an opponent's move 3 steps ahead. "You've been busy, Agent Miles," he says, his voice carrying easily despite the rain. "Following crumbs I've left you. But you're late. Again." Dana moves up to Miles's flank, her own weapon locked on the men by the SUV. "One more step and you're all on the ground," she warns. The tarp shifts slightly as one of the men loosens his grip, revealing the sleek, metallic edge of a weapons crate. Not standard issue, this is military grade, and Miles knows instantly it's tied to a smuggling ring much bigger than what they've uncovered so far. "You have no idea what you're stepping into," Calder says, almost sounding amused. "That crate doesn't belong to your bureau, your military, or your government. It belongs to me." "Not anymore," Miles replies. "On your knees, hands behind your head." Calder glances around, his gaze lingering on the shadows beyond the pier. That's when Miles sees it. Movement, faint but deliberate. Additional figures positioned just beyond the reach of the dock lights. Calder didn't come alone, and his backup isn't here for negotiation. "Eyes on the perimeter," Miles calls into his comms. Agents fan out, shifting their aim to the figures now closing in. The rain intensifies, drumming on the pier like an urgent clock counting down. Calder lifts his hands slowly, but the faint smile never leaves his face. "You think you've cornered me? But this pier, this night, it's not about me. It's about who's watching you." Before Miles can process the words, one of Calder's men tosses a flash grenade toward the SUVs. The detonation floods the pier in blinding white light. Shouts erupt as agents shield their eyes. By the time the glare fades, Calder's men have scattered, the crate now sliding toward the edge of the pier where a small speedboat waits. "Stop that boat!" Dana yells, sprinting forward. Miles follows, boots hammering against the wet wood. He tackles one of the smugglers just as they try to push the crate onto the boat, the impact sending both men sprawling. Calder moves with predator speed, grabbing the edge of the crate and hauling it aboard. "Pleasure meeting you, Agent," he calls out as the boat's engine roars to life. Miles scrambles to his feet, weapon raised, but Calder ducks behind the crate. Shots ring out from the pier as agents try to disable the boat, but it speeds away into the black water, vanishing into the storm. The aftermath is chaos. Agents securing the few men left behind. radios crackling with urgent updates. Dana returns from the far side of the pier, frustration etched into her features. They had lookouts all over the place. We barely caught 2 of them. Miles runs a hand through his rain-soaked hair. And Calder's gone again, along with whatever's in that crate. Back at the field office, the mood is grim. The prisoners aren't talking, and the little intel they've given is vague at best. The crate, they claim, was bound for an undisclosed location overseas, its contents known only to Calder and his top lieutenants. Dana paces the operations room. He's playing us. Every move, every lead, it's all been bait. He wants us chasing him. Miles leans over the table, scanning the updated intel reports. Then we stop chasing. We make him come to us. They decide to leak controlled information, details of a fake high-value shipment supposedly moving through a secure location. If Calder's network is as embedded as they believe, the bait will reach him quickly. Within 24 hours, chatter spikes. Intercepted messages point to interest in the shipment, and by the 3rd day, surveillance spots a familiar black SUV near the decoy site. Miles knows it's risky, but it's their best shot. The sting operation is set for the following night. The location? A decommissioned train depot on the city's outskirts, chosen for its multiple choke points and clear lines of sight. Agents take positions hours in advance, concealed in shadows and behind rusting freight cars. Just past midnight, headlights slice through the darkness. The black SUV rolls in, stopping near the fake shipment. 3 men get out, scanning the area before moving toward the crates. Dana's voice comes over the comms. No sign of Calder. Miles waits, eyes locked on the SUV. Then, from the far end of the depot, a figure steps into view. Not Calder, someone else. A courier, perhaps, or another of his lieutenants. The man checks his watch, taps a message into his phone, and nods toward the crates. The takedown is swift. Agents flood the area, weapons drawn. The men are restrained, their phones seized. One of the phones holds a single unread message from an encrypted number. Meeting confirmed. Same pier, 2 nights. Calder is circling back to Pier 14. Miles exchanges a look with Dana. Round 2, he says. 2 nights later, Pier 14 is a different beast. The storm has passed, leaving the air sharp and clean, but the sense of tension is even heavier than before. The tide is high, lapping against the pilings with a steady, rhythmic pull. Miles stands near the far end of the pier, his gaze fixed on the open water. The Bureau has set up in complete silence. No radios crackling, no unnecessary movement. Every agent knows Calder is too smart to walk into an obvious trap, so the operation has been built to look like a ghost town. Just a handful of disguised operatives scattered in shadow, blending with the dock workers unloading the decoy cargo. Miles adjusts his earpiece and murmurs, "All stations, status check." Quiet confirmations come back one by one, the calm before what they all know is coming. Dana is stationed halfway down the pier, leaning against a stack of fishing crates, her eyes scanning the approach. "He'll come in from the east," she whispers over the comm. That side's less exposed. Minutes stretch like hours. Then headlights appear in the distance. 2 vehicles moving slowly, their beams bouncing off the slick asphalt. The lead car is a black SUV, unmistakable. The second is a van, unmarked but too clean to be from any local fleet. Miles breathes through the spike of adrenaline. Positions. The SUV stops 20 feet from the dock entrance. Calder steps out, dressed not in the tailored coat from before, but in dark, nondescript clothing. He scans the pier with slow, deliberate precision, his gaze moving over the crates, the workers, the shadows. "Miles," Dinah's voice is tight in his ear. "He's checking for tails. He knows we're here." Calder walks toward the van, signaling for it to back up to the edge of the pier. The rear doors swing open, revealing a reinforced case large enough to hold the same kind of weaponry they saw last time. Miles watches, waiting for the right moment. Calder is flanked by 2 men, both armed, both alert. One carries a handheld radio, the other keeps his jacket open just enough for the grip of a sidearm to show. "Easy," Miles murmurs to himself. Then Calder does something unexpected. He raises his voice, speaking loudly enough to carry across the pier. "You can come out now, Agent. We've been playing hide-and-seek long enough." Miles steps into the open, his cover no longer useful. "You're under arrest, Calder. Weapons on the ground, hands where I can see them." Calder smirks. "If I were you, I'd save the arrest speech for someone who isn't 10 steps ahead of you." He nods toward the van. "You should really see what's in here before you start talking about charges." The man with the radio taps a sequence on the device, and the case inside the van clicks open. Inside, under the harsh white glow of an LED strip, is not weapons, but a bound and gagged man, one of the Bureau's missing informants. Dana's voice cuts in sharply. "Miles, that's Carter. He's been off-grid for 6 weeks." Calder spreads his hands, a picture of mock innocence. "I'm returning lost property. Thought it might earn me a little goodwill." Miles's jaw tightens. "What's the price?" "Just a conversation," Calder says, stepping closer. "You think I'm the top of the ladder, but I'm just one rung. The people above me. You can't touch them. Not without me." The standoff teeters on a knife's edge. Agents in the shadows shift, ready to move, but Miles lifts a hand to hold them back. "Talk fast." Calder's smile fades, replaced by something colder. "There's a shipment coming in 3 days. Not weapons. Something worse. If you want it stopped, you'll need my access codes, my routes, my men. You can arrest me now and lose it all. Or you can work with me, just long enough to cut the head off the snake." Dana murmurs in the comm, "He's baiting you. This is leverage." Miles knows she's right, but he also knows that ignoring Calder could cost lives. "You'll turn over every piece of intel you have. You'll help us intercept that shipment, and you'll do it under our control with full surveillance." Calder nods once, the deal unspoken but understood. Then we have an arrangement. The extraction is tense. Agents secure Carter, loading him into an unmarked vehicle bound for a secure medical facility. Calder's men are disarmed and separated, each taken into custody. Calder himself is placed in the back of a Bureau SUV, wrists cuffed, but the look in his eyes says he doesn't feel captured. As the convoy pulls away from Pier 14, Miles can't shake the feeling that this was exactly what Calder wanted, that somewhere in the shadows of this game, a larger move is already in play. Back at the field office, Dana lays out the intel Calder provided. Shipping manifests, encrypted communications, and GPS coordinates point to a warehouse on the outskirts of the city, currently inactive, but booked under a shell corporation linked to multiple smuggling cases. 3 days, Dana says. Whatever's coming in, we need to be ready. Miles studies the map. Then we take the fight to them. For the first time in weeks, the hunt isn't just about reacting, it's about striking first. But in the pit of his stomach, Miles knows that working with Calder is like walking through a minefield blindfolded. One wrong step, and everything blows apart. The warehouse stands on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by a cracked asphalt lot littered with rusted shipping containers. From the outside, it looks abandoned. Boarded-up windows, a sagging roofline, weeds breaking through the pavement. But the GPS coordinates Calder provided match perfectly, and the Bureau's satellite feed shows signs of recent vehicle traffic. Miles and Dana arrive in an unmarked SUV, their team fanning out in a perimeter sweep. Dusk is settling in, throwing long shadows across the lot. The air smells of salt and engine oil, a reminder that the river is just a few hundred yards away. Inside the command van, tech specialist Reyes pulls up the building's heat signature. "Multiple sources on the ground floor," he says, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "Can't get an exact count. They're moving too much. Could be a dozen, maybe more, and something bigger in the center. Heat reading is off the charts." Miles exchanges a glance with Dana. "Bigger like a generator?" Reyes shakes his head. "Or bigger like a container that's radiating heat from the inside?" Dana adjusts her tactical vest. "We won't know until we're in. The plan is simple. 2 entry teams, simultaneous breach. Team Alpha, led by Miles, will take the front loading dock. Team Bravo, led by Dana, will circle to the rear service entrance. Both will move in at the same moment, minimizing the chance of suspects fleeing or destroying whatever's inside." At the 3-minute mark, Miles gets the all-clear from both flanks. He grips the handle of the loading dock door, nods to his team, and counts down silently. 3, 2, 1. The metal door crashes upward and agents flood in, weapons raised. The interior is dim, lit only by hanging work lamps that sway slightly in the draft from the open doors. Stacks of wooden crates form narrow corridors, each one marked with false shipping labels from ports all over the world. A shout echoes from somewhere deep in the warehouse, followed by the unmistakable sound of boots pounding on concrete. "Contact!" an agent calls from the left flank. Gunfire erupts, short and controlled bursts. Miles pushes forward, his team moving in tight formation. "Secure the shooters, push to the center!" In the middle of the warehouse, they find it, the source of the abnormal heat reading. A massive steel container, its sides lined with thick insulation, sits under a bank of floodlights. The exterior bears no markings except for a serial number and a fresh padlock. Dana's voice crackles in over comms. "We've got suspects fleeing out the back, engaging pursuit. Hold position until we clear them." Miles waves Reyes forward. The tech kneels by the padlock, working quickly with a digital bypass tool. It clicks open in less than 30 seconds. When the doors swing wide, the first thing that hits is the heat, rolling out like a physical wave. Then the smell, acrid, chemical, and wrong. Inside, stacked in neat rows, are metal canisters, each stamped with a hazard symbol for radioactive material. Miles's gut tightens. "We've got radiological cargo. Everyone, masks on!" Agents snap on respirators as Reyes steps inside to photograph the serial numbers. "These aren't industrial," he says. "They're military grade. And the seals, these were tampered with." Before Miles can respond, a voice echoes from the far end of the warehouse. "You're welcome, Agent." Calder steps into the light, his hands raised slightly in mock surrender. He's flanked by two unfamiliar men, both carrying duffel bags. Miles stiffens. "You were supposed to be in holding." Calder smiles faintly. "Holding is for people without value. I told you I had access you didn't. Consider this proof." Dana's voice cuts in again. "Miles, rear suspects escaped into the river channel. We've got divers in pursuit, but..." She trails off, and when she speaks again her tone is grim. "We found charges wired to the pilings under the building." Miles turns to Calder. "How long?" "5 minutes, Calder says casually. "Maybe less, depending on how good their timers are." The warehouse suddenly feels smaller, the ticking clock pressing in on all sides. Miles signals his team. "Evac, secure the canisters you can carry, leave the rest. Move." Agents grab as many of the metal containers as they can, hauling them toward the loading dock. Outside, engines roar to life as transport vehicles pull up for rapid extraction. Calder doesn't move until Miles grabs his arm. "You're coming with us." "I told you, Agent," Calder says, his voice calm even in the chaos. "I'm the only one who can take you higher. You need me alive." They clear the building with less than 90 seconds to spare. The explosion hits as the last vehicle pulls away, a deafening roar that sends a shockwave rippling across the lot. The warehouse collapses inward, flames licking skyward, the heat washing over them even from 100 feet away. In the distance, sirens wail. Local fire and police, too late to do anything but control the damage. Inside the command van, Dana slams her headset onto the table. Half the canisters are gone. If those charges were meant to cover the theft, they succeeded. Miles looks at Calder, who sits cuffed in the corner, his expression unreadable. "Where are they going?" Calder leans back, the faintest trace of a smile on his lips. "Now you're asking the right question." The morning after the warehouse explosion, the city wakes to a skyline tainted by a column of dark smoke still curling into the pale dawn. News helicopters circle above the wreckage, their cameras broadcasting live footage to every television and phone screen in the state. Headlines scream about the mystery blast at the abandoned docks, while anchors speculate about everything from gang wars to domestic terrorism. At the Bureau's downtown field office, the air is electric with tension. Miles sits at the head of the conference table, the glow from a wall-sized display casting harsh light across his tired features. Footage from the scene plays on a loop, agents in hazmat suits moving canisters into secure transports, flames devouring the warehouse the moment the roof gives way in a storm of sparks. Dana enters with 2 coffee cups, sliding one toward him. "It's already all over social media," she says. "They're calling it a government cover-up. Hashtags trending, conspiracy forums lit up." Miles takes a sip, grimacing at the bitterness. "And the official line? Fire department says it was an industrial accident. But the mayor's office is getting pressure from the governor, and the governor's getting calls from Washington. This is about to go way over our heads." Before Miles can respond, Assistant Director Grant strides in, her presence commanding immediate silence. She's flanked by 2 men in dark suits, their expressions unreadable. "We're in crisis mode," she says without preamble. "Half of those canisters are unaccounted for. If the public gets wind of what they actually contained, we'll have panic in the streets." Dana leans forward. "Calder claims he can get us to whoever took them." Grant's gaze sharpens. "Claims?" Miles meets her eyes. He's playing a game, but he was in that warehouse when we breached, and he knew about the explosives before we did. That's not coincidence. One of the suited men speaks up for the first time. If Calder has verifiable intelligence, we need to leverage it. He has a network we've been trying to penetrate for years. The other man shakes his head. Or he's using us to eliminate his competition. Either way, keeping him in custody is a risk. Grant holds up a hand, silencing both. We don't have the luxury of time. The bureau director wants progress by the end of the week. Miles, you and Dana will escort Calder to a secure location for interrogation. No one outside this room is to know where he's being held. An hour later, they're on the road in a black SUV. Calder in the back seat, his hands cuffed but his posture relaxed. He watches the city blur past, a faint smile tugging at his mouth. You know, he says, the people you're after aren't the ones you think. The men at the docks last night? Hired muscle, disposable. The real players are already moving the merchandise. Dana glances at him in the rearview mirror. Merchandise? That's your word for weapons-grade radioactive material? Calder shrugs. Call it whatever makes you feel righteous. Point is, it's in transit, and you won't find it by chasing shadows at the waterfront. Miles turns in his seat to face him. Then where? That depends on how badly you want to know. The secure site is a former military bunker buried deep beneath a state park. From the outside, it looks like nothing more than a maintenance shed. Inside, reinforced steel doors open into a maze of corridors lined with surveillance cameras and biometric scanners. They lead Calder to an interrogation room. No windows, just a table, 3 chairs, and a digital recorder. For the next 2 hours, the conversation is a verbal chess match. Calder offers fragments of information, each one tantalizing but incomplete. He names a cargo ship scheduled to depart from a private dock in 3 days. He mentions a man called Vorin, a broker with ties to Eastern European militias. But whenever Miles or Dana press for details, he shifts the topic, demanding assurances in return. Finally, Miles slams his palm on the table. Enough games! You're either helping us or you're going back into a hole so deep you'll never see daylight again. Calder studies him, then leans forward. I'm offering you a chance to stop something far worse than last night, but I need a guarantee, full immunity for my prior activities and safe passage out of the country when this is over. Dana scoffs. You want us to just let you walk? I want you to survive, Calder says evenly. If you think last night was the end game, you're already dead. The tension in the room is broken by a knock at the door. Reyes steps in, a tablet in his hand. We just pulled satellite images from the river delta, he says. You're going to want to see this. On the screen, a grainy infrared shot shows a convoy of 3 trucks moving along a dirt road at the edge of the marshlands. Each truck is heavily covered, but the heat signatures are unmistakable, similar to the ones from the stolen canisters. They're heading south, Reyes says. If they keep that pace, they'll hit the interstate by nightfall. Miles turns to Calder. Is this them? Calder's smile is slow, deliberate. This is the opening move. Outside the bunker, the storm clouds are rolling in, the wind carrying the promise of rain. Somewhere out there, half a cache of deadly cargo is on the move, and the only man who might know where it's going is sitting in their custody, holding all the cards. Rain begins to fall in slow, deliberate drops, pattering against the roof of the black SUV as Miles grips the steering wheel. Dana sits beside him, eyes fixed on the GPS feed from Reyes. Behind them, a second vehicle carries a tactical team, their radios crackling with updates from the command center. The convoy they're tracking is already miles ahead, but the Bureau's analysts have calculated potential intercept points based on road closures and traffic patterns. The problem is time. Every second the trucks stay on the move, the chance of losing them grows. In the back seat, Calder sits uncuffed now, at Grant's reluctant order, his hands resting on his knees. He stares out the window at the blurred tree line, his voice calm despite the urgency in the air. You can't just tail them and hope for the best, he says. These guys don't run linear routes. They'll swap vehicles, split cargo, change drivers. You'll be chasing ghosts. Dana glances over her shoulder. So tell us how to stop them before that happens. You intercept before the split, and the only place they'll pause long enough for that is their first handoff point. Miles frowns. Which is? Calder smirks. A little fishing village called Harrow's Bend. Off the main highway, no cell towers, no police presence. Perfect for a quiet transfer. Dana taps on the GPS, searching the location. The map shows a cluster of weathered buildings along the shoreline, accessible only by a narrow, winding road through dense forest. If we leave the interstate here, we can cut across and get there ahead of them, she says. Miles makes the turn, tires hissing on the wet pavement. The wipers work overtime, smearing rain across the windshield. The forest closes in, the canopy overhead turning the road into a tunnel of shadows. Halfway through, Rhea's voice crackles over the radio. "Be advised, satellite feed's spotty in that area. Once you're in, we lose real-time visuals." "Copy," Miles says, his jaw tightening. They're going in blind. As they emerge from the forest, Harrow's Bend appears like a ghost from another era. Wooden docks jut into the gray water, fishing boats rocking gently in the tide. A handful of shacks line the shore, their peeling paint and sagging roofs telling stories of decades of neglect. The rain has driven everyone indoors, the place eerily silent except for the distant crash of waves. Miles pulls the SUV into an alley between two abandoned buildings. "Tactical team takes the north approach. We go in from the docks," he orders. Dana checks her sidearm, then looks at Calder. "You stay behind us. One wrong move and—" Calder raises a hand. "Relax. You need me alive." They move quickly through the shadows, the smell of salt and diesel thick in the air. At the far end of the dock, headlights cut through the mist. 3 trucks rolling slowly toward the water. Men in rain ponchos jump down, their movements practiced and precise. Crates are unloaded and carried toward a waiting fishing trawler. Dana crouches behind a stack of lobster traps, counting heads. 8 on the ground, 2 on the boat, drivers still in the cabs. Miles radios the TAC team. "Positions?" "Ready on your signal," comes the reply. Calder leans close, speaking just above a whisper. "The one in the red poncho. That's Voron's man. Take him out first or the whole thing scatters." Miles studies the figure, then nods. "On 3. They break cover, moving fast. The TAC team sweeps in from the north, weapons drawn. Shouts erupt, crates drop, and the air explodes with chaos. The man in the red poncho reaches for his waistband, but Dana is faster. She slams him against the side of the truck, disarming him before he can fire. 2 of the drivers gun their engines, trying to flee, but the narrow dock works against them. The TAC team blocks their path, forcing them to abandon the vehicles. On the trawler, a crewman hurls a crate into the water before diving in after it. Calder steps forward, pointing. "That's one of the hot ones." Without hesitation, Miles strips off his jacket and dives in. The cold shock of the water steals his breath, but he forces himself toward the sinking crate. The weight drags it down fast, but he manages to hook his arm through the rope handles, kicking hard until hands from the dock haul both him and the cargo back up. By the time he's on his feet again, soaked and shivering, the fight is over. The suspects are zip-tied and lined up against the dock wall, the truck secured. Dana pries open the crate, revealing one of the missing canisters. Intact, but with a fresh set of tracking beacons crudely attached. Calder crouches beside it, inspecting the device. They were going to hand this off to a freighter offshore. With this beacon, they could track it anywhere in the world. Miles meets Dana's eyes. "This isn't the end." "No," Calder says, standing. "This is the middle. And you're about to find out how deep it goes." From the tree line, a single gunshot cracks the air. Everyone ducks instinctively, but the shot isn't aimed at them. It hits one of the bound suspects square in the head. Panic erupts as the TAC team scrambles for cover, scanning the trees. Through the mist, a shadow moves, a lone figure retreating into the forest, rifle slung across their back. Dana's voice is sharp in the radio. "We've got a sniper! Repeat, sniper in the woods!" Miles doesn't hesitate. "Leave 2 here to secure the scene. Everyone else, with me." They charge toward the tree line, the rain now pouring in sheets, washing the docks in silver. Somewhere ahead, the shooter moves with the confidence of someone who knows they're being hunted and doesn't care. The rain turns the forest floor into a slick mess of mud and roots, every step threatening to send someone sprawling. Miles pushes forward, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness in jerky sweeps. Dana follows close behind, her weapon drawn, her breath sharp and steady. Behind them, 2 members of the TAC team fan out, keeping low as they scan for movement. The gunshot that killed the bound suspect still echoes in Miles's ears, not just because of the sound, but because of what it means. Someone is watching them. Someone skilled enough to hit a single target in a chaotic scene from deep in the tree line. And they didn't aim for the agents. That was a silencing shot, meant to keep a secret buried. Calder, running just behind, mutters under his breath, "That wasn't random, that's a cleanup." Miles doesn't answer. His focus is on the ground, fresh footprints already filling with water, but clear enough to follow. The shooter's stride is long, deliberate. Whoever they are, they're not running blindly. Up ahead, the trail splits. One path veers left toward a ridge overlooking the bay. The other drops sharply toward a series of old fishing cabins. Dana moves toward the ridge, but Miles signals her toward the cabins instead. Higher ground is a trap, he says. They'd expect us to go there. The cabins are barely standing. Rotting wood, broken windows, doors hanging loose on rusted hinges. The rain makes the whole place smell like mold and salt. Somewhere in the distance, a loose shutter bangs in the wind. Miles stops the team just inside the tree line, holding up a hand. He can feel it now. Someone's here, watching. Then, from the farthest cabin, a flicker of movement. A shadow slips from one doorway to another, fast enough that only the corner of Miles's eye catches it. Dana signals the TAC team to flank the structure. They move silently, boots sinking into the wet ground. The first breach happens in seconds. One of the agents kicks the door in, clearing the room with swift precision. Empty. Miles and Dana move toward the second cabin. The door here is already ajar, swinging slightly. Miles steps inside, flashlight cutting through the gloom. Dust motes swirl in the beam despite the damp air. A table sits in the center of the room, a single chair pushed back as if someone left in a hurry. On the table, a small black case lies open, its contents gone except for a foam imprint the exact shape of a long-barreled rifle. Dana swears under her breath. They left in a hurry, but not without their weapon. From outside, a sharp whistle. Miles sprints out to find one of the TAC agents pointing toward the bay. There, far below, a small motorboat cuts through the rain, heading toward open water. The shooter is aboard. Miles grabs his radio. "Reyes, we need an intercept on the water, now!" Static answers him. The dense canopy and the storm are killing their comms. Dana scans the shoreline. "If we move fast, we can cut them off at the south dock." They race downhill, slipping on the wet slope. Branches whip against their faces, the roar of the surf growing louder. By the time they reach the dock, the boat is already halfway to the channel. Calder steps forward, eyes narrowing. "You're not going to catch them from here." He points toward a weathered skiff tied to the dock. "But I can get you close enough." Miles hesitates only a second before untying the boat. Dana jumps in, and Calder takes the tiller like he's done it 100 times. The outboard motor coughs to life, then steadies, and they surge forward into the rain. The water is choppy, waves slapping the hull. Visibility is terrible, the target boat little more than a shadow through the downpour. Calder keeps them low in the water, using the swells as cover. As they close the distance, Miles spots movement on the other boat. A figure turning, rifle raised. "Down!" he shouts. A shot cracks, the round punching a hole through the skiff's bow. Water sprays, but they keep moving. Dana returns fire, forcing the shooter to duck. They're close enough now that Miles can make out details: a dark rain jacket, a mask covering the lower face, eyes locked in cold calculation. The shooter lifts the rifle again, but a sudden wave throws off the aim. Calder seizes the moment, steering them hard to port. The skiff slams against the target boat with a jarring thud. Miles and Dana leap across, weapons ready. The shooter doesn't fight. Instead, they drop the rifle into the sea and raise both hands slowly. It's a woman, mid-30s, sharp features, calm even now. Dana cuffs her quickly, searching for ID. There's nothing. No wallet, no phone, not even a set of keys. Miles stares at her. "Who sent you?" She doesn't answer, just meets his gaze with a faint, knowing smile. Calder climbs aboard, glancing at her before looking at Miles. "You don't need her to tell you. You already know who she works for." Miles does know, and the realization hits him like ice water. This wasn't just a random sniper. This was Voron's insurance policy, and if she's here, it means the game they're in just got a lot bigger and a lot deadlier. The holding room smells faintly of damp concrete and old coffee. A single metal table sits under a buzzing fluorescent light, casting a cold, unflattering glow over everything. Miles stands near the wall, arms crossed, watching the woman they pulled from the boat. She sits calmly, hands cuffed in front of her, posture straight as if she's here by choice. Her dark hair is pulled back, still wet from the rain, and her sharp eyes track every movement in the room. Dana enters, a slim file folder in her hands. She tosses it onto the table with a slap that echoes in the small space. "No ID, no prints in any database, no record of existence," she says, her tone a mix of irritation and curiosity. "You're a ghost." The woman doesn't flinch. "Or maybe you're just looking in the wrong places." Miles steps forward. "Start talking. You had a clean shot at me and my team, but you took out the suspect instead. Why?" The woman tilts her head, considering him. because he was about to talk, and certain people can't afford that. Voren, Miles says, watching her reaction closely. A flicker, barely there, crosses her face. But it's enough. Dana leans on the table. You've got two options: cooperate and maybe we find you a deal, or stay silent and you'll vanish into a federal black site so fast you won't even have time to miss daylight. The woman chuckles softly. Do you think I'm afraid of disappearing? That's my world. I was invisible long before you caught me. Miles slides into the chair across from her, his gaze steady. You're not afraid of disappearing, but you're afraid of being irrelevant. If Voren sent you, you're just another disposable asset. The second you're not useful, you'll end up like the man you shot, only no one will know your name. That gets her attention. Her jaw tightens and she leans forward slightly. You think you know how this works, Agent Miles? Voren's reach is deeper than you can imagine. You cut off one head, two more grow in its place. The moment you think you've got him cornered, you're already playing the game he set up months ago. Dana smirks. Sounds like someone's trying to make their boss sound untouchable. That's usually the first sign he's not. The woman ignores her, turning her focus fully on Miles. You're in over your head, you have no idea what's coming. Miles doesn't blink. Then tell me. For a long moment, the only sound is the buzz of the light overhead. Finally, she leans back and says, Voren isn't here. He's already moved operations east. Everything happening here, it's just a smokescreen. Dana narrows her eyes. East where? The woman shakes her head. That's all you get without a deal. Miles stands, motioning for the guard. Take her to holding. No phone calls, no visitors. As she's led out, she glances over her shoulder at him. You think you're chasing Voren, but he's chasing you. The words stick with Miles long after she's gone. Later, in the operations room, the team gathers around a digital map. Reyes has satellite images pulled up, highlighting recent shipments moving through the eastern seaboard. 3 cargo containers left the port last week, Reyes says. Manifest says agricultural equipment, but scans show density anomalies, too heavy for farming gear. Dana taps the screen. Could be weapons, could be tech. Either way, Voren's moving something big. Miles studies the pattern. And he wants us focused here so we miss it. We need to split the team. Reyes shakes his head. That's risky. You go east, you're walking straight into his territory without backup. That's why we'll need a diversion, Dana says. Something loud enough to keep him looking over his shoulder while we go for the real target. Calder, leaning against the wall, finally speaks up. You want loud? I can make loud. But you're not going to like it. All eyes turn to him. He smiles faintly. We let it slip that Miles is going undercover inside one of Voren's safe houses. Word will spread. Voren will focus everything on trying to root him out. Meanwhile, the real move happens in the east. Dana frowns. That paints a target on his back. Calder shrugs. It already is. Miles nods slowly. It could work, but we'd need to control the leak so it doesn't blow too wide. Reyes looks uneasy. And if Voren figures out it's a feint? Miles meets his gaze. Then we improvise. The room falls silent. Everyone knows the risks, but the alternative, doing nothing, means letting Voren tighten his grip. Finally, Dana says, All right, let's get to work. Hours later, in the dim light of the safe house, Miles sits alone, reviewing the plan. Somewhere out there, Voren is already hearing whispers about him. And if the woman's warning was true, that Voren is chasing him, it means the next move will come fast. The question is, from which direction? The freight yard smells of diesel and wet iron. A light mist hangs over the rows of stacked containers, their metal sides streaked with rust and grime. The eastern port is alive with the hum of forklifts and the low groan of cranes lifting massive loads into waiting ships. But tonight, the work feels slower, more deliberate, as if the entire place knows something dangerous is moving under its nose. Miles crouches behind a wall of shipping pallets, his dark jacket blending into the shadows. In his earpiece, Dana's voice crackles. We've got eyes on container 17B. Heat signatures match at least 3 individuals inside, no movement yet. He adjusts the earpiece, scanning the rows. And the other 2 containers? Empty, Reyes replies from the van a few blocks away. At least according to thermal, but something's off. The manifest says agricultural equipment, but weight distribution suggests solid, compact cargo. Could be weapons, could be something worse. Miles signals Calder, who's perched on top of a container with a suppressed rifle. Calder nods once, eyes never leaving his scope. They've been tracking the shipment for 48 hours straight. The woman in custody, still refusing to give her name, had slipped that single clue about East. It was enough to pull them here, enough to gamble resources on a port crawling with Voron's people. A heavy clang echoes through the yard. Two figures in oil-stained coveralls move toward 17B, their faces partially obscured by baseball caps pulled low. They stop at the container's lock, glancing around before one produces a key. Dana's voice is low. "They're opening it." Miles inches forward, keeping to the shadows. The lock snaps open with a dull click, and the metal doors creak wide. Inside, dim light reveals stacks of wooden crates, each marked with an unfamiliar insignia. An angular symbol like a broken circle. Reyes exhales sharply in Miles's ear. "That's not agricultural." Before they can make a move, a black SUV rolls into the yard, headlights cutting through the mist. It stops a few meters away, and four men step out. They're not dock workers. Dark suits, hard eyes, and the bulge of concealed weapons under their jackets. Miles's gut tightens. Voron's people. The suited men approach the container, one of them speaking briefly with the workers. The conversation is low, tense. Then, without warning, one of the suited men pulls a pistol and shoots both workers in the head. The sound is muffled but final. Dana swears softly over comms. That just turned into a cleanup operation. Two of the suits climb into the container, inspecting the crates. One pries open a lid, revealing rows of sleek black devices, each the size of a shoebox with blinking green indicators. Reyes's voice sharpens. "That's military-grade comms encryption hardware. In the wrong hands." Miles cuts him off. "We're not letting it leave this port." He signals Calder. A breath later, a soft pop echoes as Calder's rifle spits two suppressed shots. Both hit their marks, dropping the suited men outside the container. The two inside spin around, shouting, reaching for weapons, but Miles is already moving. He bursts from cover, closing the distance in seconds. His fist smashes into the first man's jaw, sending him sprawling into the crates. The second manages to fire a shot, the bullet sparking off the container's frame, but Miles slams him against the wall, disarming him with a twist of the wrist. "Container secure," Miles says into the comm, breathing hard. "But we've got more incoming." Right on cue, engines roar in the distance, multiple vehicles closing fast. Dana's voice is all business. "We need extraction, now!" Reyes, "Van's 3 minutes out, hold your position." Miles knows 3 minutes in a port full of Voron's men feels like an eternity. He and Calder drag the bodies inside, closing the container doors just enough to give them cover without locking themselves in. Outside, tires screech, and boots hit wet pavement. Through the gap, Miles sees silhouettes moving between the rows of containers. Dozens of them. Radios squawk in rapid bursts. Calder murmurs, "Too many to fight head-on." Miles scans the crates, spots a stack of small fuel canisters in one corner. He tosses Calder a look. "We don't need to fight them. We just need to make sure they don't get this cargo." Calder grins, already pulling a flare from his vest. "Now you're talking." They rig the canisters against the crates, using duct tape and sheer speed. Outside, footsteps grow louder. Shadows pass just beyond the thin metal walls. Voices bark orders in a language Miles doesn't recognize. Dana's voice cuts in. "Van's here! Southwest gate! Go!" Miles yanks the flare's cap, its blinding red light filling the container. He jams it into place, the hiss growing louder as the chemical reaction eats through the casing. "Move!" They shove the doors open and sprint, weaving between containers. Shouts erupt behind them, followed by the sharp crack of gunfire. Bullets ping off steel as they duck and weave. The first explosion comes seconds later, a deep concussive whump that sends a shockwave rolling through the yard. Flames bloom high, lighting up the mist like sunrise. The second explosion follows, louder, scattering Voron's men in panic. Miles and Calder dive into the waiting van, Dana already in the driver's seat. Reyes slams the side door shut as she floors it, tires squealing on wet asphalt. In the rearview mirror, Miles watches the fire consume 17B, the angular symbols disappearing in the flames. It's a win, but a temporary one. Dana glances at him. "We just made a very loud enemy." Miles exhales slowly. He already knew we were coming. Now he knows we're willing to burn his game pieces. Reyes shakes his head. And if that woman in custody was right, this was just the smokescreen. Miles looks out at the dark horizon. Then we'd better find out what it's hiding before the real move happens. The city skyline looms ahead, its glass towers reflecting the faint pre-dawn light. Inside the van, the air is thick with exhaustion and the sharp tang of burned metal still clinging to their clothes. No one speaks for a long stretch of highway. The rhythmic thrum of the tires is the only sound. Miles finally breaks the silence. That shipment wasn't the endgame. Voren wouldn't risk that many men for comms hardware alone. Dana keeps her eyes on the road. So what was it? A diversion? Reyes scrolls through his tablet, pulling up satellite images of the port taken earlier. The explosion drew every security unit within 3 miles to that yard. While we were busy, 2 unmarked trucks slipped out the north gate. Calder looks over from the passenger seat. And where did they go? Reyes's voice is grim. Straight into downtown. No plates, no stops. We lost them in the traffic. Miles leans forward, his mind connecting the pieces. If Voren wanted those trucks to disappear in a city this size, they're carrying something that can't wait. Weapons, bioagents, or people. The thought hangs heavy in the air. Dana glances at him in the mirror. People? He nods. High-value targets. Political leverage, maybe even operatives he wants off-grid. Reyes taps the screen, bringing up a new feed. I just got a ping. City traffic cams caught one of the trucks briefly, turning into an underground parking structure beneath the Mercer Financial Building. Dana swears under her breath. That's half a block from the Federal Reserve branch. Miles's pulse kicks up. If Voren has men inside that close to the reserve, he's planning something big, something public. They veer off the freeway, Dana pushing the van hard through the waking streets. As they get closer to the financial district, Miles notices the subtle changes. Roadblocks manned by private security, not city police. Street sweepers parked at odd angles. Pedestrians avoiding certain corners. This whole zone feels wrong, Calder mutters, scanning the sidewalks. They park 2 blocks away and move on foot, blending into the early commuters. Miles pulls a worn messenger bag over his shoulder, concealing his sidearm. Reyes keeps his tablet hidden under a folded newspaper, feeding live building schematics to their earpieces. The Mercer has 3 main levels underground, Reyes whispers. 2 for parking, 1 sub-basement used for storage and maintenance. Those trucks would fit easily down there. Dana's voice is calm but tight. We need eyes inside without spooking them. Miles nods, spotting a side entrance used by delivery crews. There. They slip into the alley where a lone security guard smokes beside a dumpster. Calder approaches casually, pulling a pack of cigarettes from his pocket. Got a light? The guard glances up, barely registering the rest of them slipping past the door Calder nudges open with his boot. Inside, the smell changes. Cool recycled air, faintly metallic. They descend a concrete stairwell to the second parking level. The hum of fluorescent lights buzzes overhead. Around the far corner, 2 black trucks sit side by side, their rear doors open. Crates are being unloaded by men in plain clothes but moving with military precision. Miles signals a halt, crouching behind a support pillar. Through the narrow gap, he catches a glimpse of the cargo. A sleek cylindrical device, polished metal, about the size of a motorcycle engine. 2 men lift it carefully into a rolling case lined with foam. Reyes's voice is urgent in his ear. That's not a weapon, it's a power core. Miles frowns. For what? Dana answers quietly. For a portable disruptor, the kind that can fry every electronic system in a quarter-mile radius. The realization hits fast. A disruptor this close to the Federal Reserve would shut down all alarms, comms, and security systems. The vaults would be blind. We can't let that thing leave, Miles says, already mapping his approach. Calder checks the magazine in his rifle. You take the core, I'll handle the perimeter. They move in a synchronized rhythm, ghosts in the dim light. Calder drops the first sentry with a chokehold, dragging him silently into the shadows. Dana cuts across the opposite flank, blocking the stairwell with a heavy steel bar. Miles reaches the truck just as 2 men start wheeling the case toward a service elevator. He steps into their path, one hand gripping the case handle. Going somewhere? The nearer man's eyes widen in recognition, but before he can shout, Miles slams the case into his ribs and sweeps his legs out. The second lunges with a knife, but Miles twists his wrist until the blade clatters to the floor. Gunfire erupts across the garage, Calder engaging the far side as more of Voren's men pour in. Dana dives behind a concrete barrier, returning fire in short, controlled bursts. Reyes's voice is tight. We've got to move. Reinforcements are coming up from the first level. Miles yanks open the rolling case, staring at the core. It hums faintly, light rippling across its surface. He doesn't know exactly how it works, but he knows it can't be here. Options? He demands. Dana reloads. We can destroy it, but that'll light up the entire block, or we get it out before they know it's gone. Calder's voice cuts in, sharp. Pick now. Miles makes the call. We take it. They secure the core in the messenger bag, padding it with whatever fabric they can find. Reyes guides them toward a maintenance tunnel at the far end of the garage. Bullets ricochet off the walls as they run, the sound of pursuit echoing behind them. They burst into the tunnel, the air damp and smelling of oil. Emergency lights flicker overhead. Dana takes point, weaving through the narrow space until they reach a locked grate. Reyes catches up, tools already in hand. 30 seconds. Miles can hear boots pounding the concrete behind them. Calder turns, laying down suppressive fire as sparks rain from the metal walls. The lock snaps open. They spill out into another alley 3 blocks from the Mercer, blending instantly into the early morning crowd. No one notices the 4 of them vanish into the flow of commuters, just another group in the endless city tide. As they round the corner toward their van, Miles feels the weight of the core against his side. It's heavier than it should be, not just in mass, but in consequence. Dana meets his eyes. If Voren built one, he can build more. Miles nods grimly. Then we'd better find his workshop, and end this before the next one lights up. The safe house is silent except for the low hum of the portable jammer Reyes set up near the window. Outside, the city moves on as if nothing happened. Commuters rushing to work, street vendors shouting for attention. But inside, the team is locked in a tense huddle around the core. Miles rests it on the table, its metallic surface catching the dim light. The gentle pulsing glow is hypnotic, almost alive. We can't keep this here, he says, his tone clipped. Voren's men will track it. Dana leans forward, arms crossed. Then we use it, turn his own tech against him. Calder shakes his head. That thing knocks out everything, comms, lights, medical equipment. We use it wrong, people die. Reyes runs a diagnostic on his tablet, lines of code streaming past his screen. This core is tagged. Passive signal, probably invisible to most scanners, but Voren will have the receiver. Miles processes that. So he already knows we have it. Dana glances toward the window as if expecting the sound of boots on stairs. Which means we've got a small window to hit him before he hits us. Reyes switches to a map. 3 locations highlighted in red. I traced recent encrypted comms tied to the same signal. The strongest source is here, an industrial compound by the docks. Low foot traffic, heavy security, and, get this, constant power draws at odd intervals. Could be where he's building more cores. Calder leans in, studying the map. If we hit it hard and fast, we might catch him mid-build. Miles nods. Then that's where we end this. They move quickly, breaking down the safe house in under 10 minutes. Dana drives while Reyes feeds them building schematics pulled from old city records. Calder loads his gear in silence, his jaw tight. Miles keeps one hand on the messenger bag, feeling the core's faint vibration through the fabric. The compound comes into view under a slate-gray sky. Tall fences topped with razor wire, guard towers at each corner, and a single gate manned by armed personnel in unmarked uniforms. Dana pulls the van into an abandoned warehouse 2 blocks away. We go on foot from here. They split, Calder taking the high route along a rusted catwalk that overlooks the outer yard. Dana circling to the east to block exits, Miles and Reyes heading straight for the perimeter. At the fence, Reyes kneels by a junction box, sparks jumping as he bypasses the alarm circuit. Within seconds, a small section of wire sags enough for them to slip through. Inside, the air smells of salt and machine oil. Massive shipping containers are stacked like walls, creating narrow corridors. Voices echo in the distance, orders barked in a language Miles doesn't recognize. They follow the sound to a large warehouse at the center of the yard. Through a grimy window, Miles spots 3 more cores on workbenches, technicians in heavy gloves assembling components under Voren's watchful eye. Voren is taller than Miles remembers from the intel photos. Broad shoulders, shaved head, and a long scar running from temple to jaw. He moves with calm authority, inspecting each core like a craftsman admiring his work. Miles whispers into his mic. Target in sight, multiple devices. We take them all. Calder's voice comes back steady. I've got Overwatch. Give me the signal. Dana cuts in. East exit sealed. No one leaves. Miles takes a breath. Go. Calder's first shot shatters the overhead light, plunging half the warehouse into shadow. Chaos erupts. Technicians diving for cover, Voron barking orders. Miles and Reyes push through the side door, weapons drawn. One guard rushes them. Miles drops him with a shoulder strike and disarms him in one fluid motion. Reyes moves to the nearest core, pulling a portable jammer from his pack and slapping it onto the housing. The hum falters. Dana bursts in from the opposite side, cutting off Voron's escape. He turns, recognition flashing in his eyes. "You're too late," he says, his voice carrying over the noise. "The others are already deployed." Miles steps closer. "Then we'll take you apart piece by piece until we find them." Voron smiles faintly. "You think this ends with me?" Before Miles can answer, Voron lunges for a control panel. Calder's shot takes the panel out inches from his hand, sparks flying. Voron freezes, then slowly raises his hands. Reyes secures the remaining cores while Dana cuffs Voron. Calder joins them on the floor, rifle still trained on the prisoner. Miles looks around at the half-built devices, the scattered tools, the flickering lights. "We destroy everything. Nothing leaves this room." It takes them 20 minutes to rig the charges. By the time they're done, the warehouse is empty save for the faint glow of the cores. Outside, the team drags Voron to the van. Miles takes one last look at the building, then triggers the detonator. The explosion rolls through the compound, a deep concussive boom that shakes the ground. Flames lick at the night sky, sending a plume of black smoke toward the harbor. No one speaks on the drive back. The weight of what they've stopped, and what they might still face, settles over them. At the safe house, federal agents take Voron into custody. Miles hands over the confiscated cores, watching as they're loaded into reinforced cases and driven away under heavy guard. Dana steps up beside him. "You think that's all of them?" Miles shakes his head. "Men like Voron always have backups, but tonight, we cut him off at the knees." Reyes joins them, exhaustion etched into his face. "And tomorrow?" Miles allows himself a faint smile. "Tomorrow, we see where the trail leads." They stand in the doorway as the last of the agents disappear into the night, the city's hum returning to normal. For now, at least, the streets are safe. But in the quiet, Miles knows their work isn't done, and that when the next threat rises, they'll be ready.